Hey y'all, this is Tyler Blake from tylerblakeart.com again, and this is day 65 of my 100 Days of Making Comics. And today I'm doing some more on the correction for the fifth panel on page 5. And I had fun doing this format yesterday, so I figured I'd just go ahead and do that again today. And it occurred to me that I wasn't quite happy with the posture on the character initiating the attack, so I'm gonna do some upper body work on him today. So, okay, yesterday I was talking a little bit about how I got into uh, drawing seriously. I mentioned that I moved up here from Texas, and my friend Josh uh, asked me to, he sent me some drawings, asked me to send him back some drawings. Also, the movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, and that was like, this huge. And, some of you who, like, are younger might not be aware of this, because this isn't necessarily something like Star Wars that has, like, staying power, or, Harry Potter or something like that. But when the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie came out, it was like this blockbuster bomb, and it was, I was like 11, so I might have been 12 or something by then, but anyway, um it was this huge thing, and I just started drawing the Ninja Turtles like all the time. And I had, they had these little like Ninja Turtle fanzines and stuff like that, and I just started like copying drawings, and that was kind of how I started to learn anatomy. Was because they had these guys in these really good um, rubber latex suits, and the way they did the bottom side of the shells, they had it kind of worked out like a human torso in a way. It was like it somewhat resembled. They had the sections where it was like pecs and abs. So I'm not saying I learned like perfect anatomy from copying those, but it kind of got me started in the direction. And it might have I don't know, but it's possible that it might have been a stumbling block too, because of there's in a turtle shell, there's not the same kind of flexibility you get in a human torso. So I kind of wonder if that didn't make my figures more static for a while later, when I was studying like the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And the other one, uh, books that this was another thing that my mom got me started on. And actually, you know what, let me back up, because I can't really talk about my history with art without talking about my mom, because my mom is an oil painter. And I grew up with that, and um, she was always into art. And then she took, she started to go to college, she didn't finish. And then when her and my dad got married, she took some time off from art. She put it on the back burner to start the family. And I grew up like seeing some of her paintings around the house, but I didn't really know what all she could do. And she also is into a lot of different crafts. So she, like, if we were watching a movie or something, my mom would crochet like all the time. She never, she always had that stuff by her chair. And like if we were sitting down to watch something, it would go in her lap, and she'd be, and you could like, if it was a quiet spot in the movie, you'd hear her go. So, but anyway, when I was coming home from school one day, and I got home and I was starting to channel surf, and I came across this guy on PBS doing one of those paint along shows. And his name was Gary Jenkins. He was this guy wearing like a straw cowboy hat, and he was doing floral paintings and oils. And I didn't even know what oils were. I didn't know the difference between different kinds of paint and all that. This arm is completely in the wrong spot now that I've changed the torso. So I said, "Hey mom, come check this guy out." And she came in, and she got into it, and so we started watching him together every day. That was kind of one of our regular things. And And then that followed with Bob Ross and William Alexander and some of those other guys that used to have those educational painting shows in the 80s. But so my mom my dad built her an easel, and so she would be, and we had a a big sliding glass door in the kitchen, so that had the best natural light. So she had her easel set up in kind of our dining room area, and I'd come home from school and I would be drawing like, I'd be at the kitchen table drawing like dinosaurs eating people or trying to draw Wolverine, and my mom would be doing landscapes, and that was like our art time together. And it was funny because I would do like, Godzilla attacking the city or like, and I was a kid, so it's not like, I wasn't worried about being paleontologically accurate. So if I happened to do a triceratops eating someone, I didn't know that they were plant eaters, right? Or I mean, I probably knew that. I'm sure I knew that when I was 11, but I didn't really care. So, and then I would give these drawings to my mom, and she'd be like, "Oh, that's nice, thanks." And I'm like, "Are you gonna put it on the fridge?" So one time I drew just on a whim. I think I was looking through like a hunting magazine or something, and they always have pictures of deer and elk, and so I was using that as reference, and I drew my mom a picture of a deer, and she freaked out. And actually, this would have been before the Bob Ross era, but she just like thought that was like the coolest thing ever, and I was like, I don't understand why she likes that so much. I mean, it's just a deer. I mean, it's not even eating anybody. So just different mindsets. So anyway, this is starting to pan out a little bit more like what I wanted. Move a couple other parts over here. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna like that better. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that was. Oh, okay. So I got a book called Dynamic Anatomy by Bern Hogarth, and Bern Hogarth was a really good illustrator. I want to say he was from New York, and he did like a lot of work on like some of the Edgar Rice Burroughs properties. He did a lot of like the Tarzan comic strips and things like that. Um, and he had like a really kind of dry technical style. It's like his art was awesome, but he was a little bit hard to learn from reading the text because it was, and part of it might have been that I think when I got my first book of his, I was probably about 15, and it's possible that it was just kind of over my head at the time, but I was able to, it was similar to the system that they teach in the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, but more technical, more kind of like you know, more in depth, let's say. So I just did, I just did like page after page after page of figure drawings and just, trying to really learn that stuff in sketchbooks. And, yeah, it's, you got to do the grind, right? That, they talk about the 10,000 hour rule, and it's not like I kept track, but I wonder like how many hours have I spent learning how to draw? It would be interesting to know. So let's talk tools for a second. I lately have been using this is by Tombow. It's the Mono Zero eraser, and it's tiny, and it's like a little mechanical clicky eraser. And I like that because, since it's small, it lets you get into small detailed areas. Its drawback, and I mean, I used to carry like three erasers, but I have like all these pens and pencils, and I'm always like kind of modifying my kit. Like, I'd have more room for this if I took this out. So it is. I'll probably go back to getting a bigger eraser because it's kind of a waste of this if you have to do a large area like redoing somebody's torso. And lately I've been using watercolor pencils to do my blue line stuff just because I kind of like them. I was using okay. Um, I got into the habit in either middle school or high school of just using mechanical pencils to draw because I liked that I didn't have to sharpen them all the time. And I like detail, so that just kind of worked out for me. Um, and then when I started in earnest with getting into drawing comics, and I learned about doing it in blue lines so that you can ink over it and then scan it and not have all your sketchy construction lines, which you can see I maybe I have blue sketchy construction lines like crazy, and if I was doing this in like regular graphite, this would be such a mess, right? So anyway, so the blue line thing was, that was a big thing for me. Um, and so I had gotten some like I think it was 0.7 or 0.5 millimeter blue lead for mechanical pencil, but that stuff just breaks like crazy. So I was constantly going through it, and then I tried I think they called it like a drafter, like an engineer's lead holder, and I'm like, that's basically like a big mechanical pencil because it was 2 millimeter. And that worked pretty well. It was kind of a happy medium, but it had like this little lead pointer in the cap, and it was slightly off axis, so it was really it wasn't like it goes straight in and you turn it and it's fine. It had a wobble to it, so it was really easy to break the leads, and I found myself constantly going through those. And so it had been years and years and years since I had actually drawn anything with like a wooden pencil, but I had gotten some watercolor pencils just to experiment with at Hobby Lobby, and I thought, well, I'll maybe I'll try doing my blue line stuff with this for a while, and it's going pretty well. So, of course, I've had to go back to my old nemesis sharpening, but I'll survive. I think maybe sometime really soon I'll set up my tripod in an area of my house where I have room to stand back and talk a little bit about the influence of historical swordsmanship on both my art that I'm doing for this project and my brother's writing. If you're not familiar with the idea, you can just do like a YouTube search on HEMA, like HEMA. There's a lot of schools now. So basically, in the recent past, some of the old uh, fencing masters' books that they had written on how to fight not just with swords but with all kinds of weapons and unarmed have kind of been discovered, and scholars have started translating them. And so a lot of the old fighting arts from Europe have been kind of getting rediscovered. And there's kind of a trope that stuff was like really clumsy and like swords weighed 10 pounds and all this stupid Hollywood stuff. And you see that a lot in movies going back to, like forever. And even, it, it's frustrating when you kind of still see that. Like, um, you know, I never got into Game of Thrones. I generally don't watch TV because I want to have more time to draw. We will watch movies and stuff, but we don't have cable or anything like that, and we don't have any of the subscription services because I just don't want to get sucked into having that be like a major part of my life. But I looked up Game of Thrones sword fights on YouTube one time just to see, because people are like, oh, Tyler, you would love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is awesome. So, and I thought the sword fights were just terrible. And I'm not an expert or anything like that. I'm interested in the subject. I don't currently train, but it was like clumsy, and people were like hitting walls and floors, and like I'm like, if you live in a world where that's a thing, if you do it poorly, you're going to die. So my point though is that the actual systems that were in place were actually really sophisticated and well thought out. And so I'm not concerned with like being like 100% accurate with the technicalities of like the swordsmanship systems that we're adapting from, but I'm going to take artistic license with it, but I want to kind of illustrate that it's not a caveman style too. So this is like my longest video so far. I just hit 16 minutes, so I think I am going to stop running my mouth now. And sorry, I didn't realize I had gone that long. So I will be back at this tomorrow. Keep reading comics, buying comics, and making comics. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.